Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we are talking about snap cuts and the issue beneath the issue, as we often do. Tonight, we're talking about snap cuts, the issue beneath the issue. So, if you've been paying attention to the news at all, you know that on November 1st, the benefits of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, will be cut. They will no longer be funded due to the government shutdown. And so we got to begin there because the reality is that SNAP goes to over 40 million people. Many of those people are children, the disabled, the elderly, and those benefits are about to be wiped out, about to be gone with the change of a calendar. And this isn't about just a policy failure, this is a moral failure. So, just to frame this conversation, what's going on with SNAP? What's going on? Because it's related to the government shutdown. So here's a summary from an article in the BBC. Democrats want a bill to include an extension of expiring tax credits that make health insurance cheaper for millions of Americans. And they want a reversal to the president's cuts to Medicaid, a government healthcare program which is used by millions of elderly, disabled, low-income people. And Democrats also oppose spending cuts to government health agencies. So the shutdown began with the big ugly bill, which enshrined a tax break for billionaires. Now, to pay for that tax break, they had to make cuts in various areas. Those areas included healthcare, among others. And what the Democrats are saying is we need a budget that protects some healthcare breaks in terms of cost that are already there. And they will not pass a bill that doesn't have those breaks because it's going to double people's health insurance costs in some cases, right? So then what that led to was the government shutdown at the beginning of October. And now what that's leading to is a whole bunch of repercussions, including the fact that a lot of federal employees are not getting paid. And this week marks the first full cycle where they don't get paid. And that affects other folks like TSA agents and air traffic controllers and a host of other people. But we're dealing with basic life issues when we're talking about SNAP. Because on November 1st, that gets cut, that gets defunded. That's no longer going to be funded until folks can come to an agreement. So all of this began essentially with tax breaks for billionaires. And now the residual effects, the ripple effects, are that poor people, disabled people, children, the elderly are going to struggle to get food, and some of them are going to go hungry. That's what we're talking about with the government shutdown. So, by the way, pastors, can we still not talk about politics in the pulpit? Now that we're talking about actual people going hungry because of politics? Is that still off limits? I'm just checking. I'm just seeing, is that where we still land right now? So all of that. Um, I'm so sorry, Leslie. She says her son who's disabled is losing SNAP. Just reading through the chat comments here. Leonard says small businesses are also going to be affected. The ripple effects are wide reaching. But here's the thing. We have this massive contradiction between scarcity and abundance, the gap between, I'm going to call it the have-it-alls and the have-nots. Not just the haves. I'm talking about the billionaires who have everything they could possibly need and are still accumulating more. And so how can a nation with so much choose choose essentially to starve its people. Millions are going to struggle with hunger. And so, what does this reveal about the soul of our nation? Unfortunately, it doesn't reveal much new. Why do I say that? Because I study the history of race and religion. And when I look at race based chattel slavery, we're seeing similar dynamics. Again, I would trace this to to tax breaks for billionaires. And when you look at race based chattel slavery, it's not that different in terms of trying to protect the ultra wealthy. So the reason why I call it race-based chattel slavery, chattel means personal property. Property means valuing it in a monetary evaluation, in this case, of human beings. So why enslave people at all? You're wrong if you think it's just about people not liking other people because of the color of their skin. It wasn't the brownness of my skin that caused enslavement. It was the greenness of the dollar, if you will. It was by making my ancestors into personal property that you didn't have to pay, who didn't have human rights that you had to respect, who didn't have civil rights that you had to respect. What happened then is you could increase your bottom line. Why? Because in this system of race based chattel slavery, your goal is to maximize profit and minimize loss. If you've ever looked at a budget, you know that the biggest line items on a budget have to do with wages, salaries, and benefits for your employees. So the quickest way to cut costs and increase profits is to mess with the wages, salaries, and benefits of your employees. You lay them off, you lower them, you take away the benefits, or better yet, you don't pay them at all. That's precisely what happens with race-based chattel slavery. The underlying factor of this heinous practice was the profit motive, was money, or to put it in Bible terms, greed. I can't go any further without mentioning my brother Malcolm Foley's book. I think he's on here, so I'm giving you another shout out. He did not pay me for this. It's just such a relevant book. Um, Malcolm Foley, who is one of the higher ups at Baylor University, and has his PhD in American religion, something like that. I know it ain't history, but it's related. Anyway, he wrote this book, The Anti-Greed Gospel: Why the Love of Money is the Root of Racism and How the Church Can Create a New Way Forward. Let me read you from the intro here. He says this: Jesus is not exaggerating when he says we cannot serve two masters, God and Mammon. And Dr. Foley makes a great point here about not just calling it money, but Mammon, because this is another God that we can potentially serve. And so we can't serve two masters, God and Mammon. The parallelism ought not to be ignored. We have a choice there. It's no both and option. We will hate the one and love the other. But the fact of the matter is that Mammon will demand our blood, the blood of our brothers and sisters, and the blood of our neighbors. Our accumulation necessitates exploitation. And the exploitation that upholds our current economy of racialized capitalism creates murder. Did you hear that? No, y'all didn't hear me. Y'all didn't hear me because I don't see nobody saying nothing. If I was if I was preaching, I would say, I don't hear y'all talking back. I don't hear y'all saying nothing. Well, you got the comment section. Listen, it says Jesus isn't exaggerating when he says we can't serve two masters, God and Mammon. The parallelism ought not to be ignored. We have a choice. There is no both and. We'll hate the one and love the other. But the fact of the matter is, Mammon will demand our blood. Mammon will demand the blood of our brothers and sisters and the blood of our neighbors. Our accumulation necessitates, hear that word, necessitates, requires, demands, cannot happen without exploitation. And that exploitation upholds our current economy of racialized capitalism, which requires murder. Do you see this happening right now? You see this with healthcare. It is skyrocket. These costs are absolutely ridiculous when you gotta have a GoFundMe to get medicine or to have a surgery or to have some sort of treatment that will save your life or keep the quality of your life at a basic level. That is ridiculous in the richest country on the planet. And now we have a program, a decades old program, used to be called food stamps. You got actual stamps, booklets of stamps to go to certain places so you could get food, now called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, helping more than 40 million people, many of them children, many of them elderly, many of them disabled. And now they're going to go hungry and tell me why. Why? The Bible has a word for it: greed. So this is why I get mad. This is why I get upset. And this is why I wanted to address this topic in relation to SNAP, healthcare, and so many other things we're seeing. While people struggle for the basic necessities of life, like food and healthcare, other people are making billions. While people stress about how they are going to get food, how they are going to get medical care, how they are going to pay for housing, other people are making billions. Here's what scripture has to say about greed. It's an insatiable craving for more. It's acquisitive, more wealth, more power, more control, and it's at the expense of others. I think that last part's important. It's at the expense of others. You see, I've always wrestled with a Christian view of money because the way I learned about it, money was just bad and there was never enough of it. I'm rethinking that and saying that money in and of itself is just paper and metal. What you do with it is what matters. Even having money in and of itself isn't necessarily evil. But greed for money, this acquisitiveness, this hole that is never filled, you always have to have more and more and more and more. That's a problem. So when you have this insatiable craving for more, it's always going to come at the expense of other people. That's what the Bible is calling out. Now, I'm not making this up. Greed, you can't serve God and mammon. That means you can't uh that means that greed replaces dependence on God with a devotion to gain. Greed replaces a dependence on God with a devotion to gain. Proverbs 15:27. Those who are greedy for unjust gain make trouble for their households. Households. Not just for you. If you're greedy for unjust gain, you make trouble for your whole household. By the way, I think that word unjust gain is important too. Filthy lucre. That's the old word. We got a lot of folk who are rich to this day because of unjust gain, whether it was from a long time ago because of race-based chattel slavery, or more recently because they were able to benefit from government programs in the New Deal and beyond that other folks couldn't benefit from. Or now I'll get to it, some folks profiting off of political office. Uh-oh. Foreshadowing, profiting off of political office. We gonna go there. We gonna go there tonight. Why did you sign up for? Why did you sign up for the live? You think I wasn't going to give you truth with no chaser? I ain't done yet. Luke 12:15. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Hello, be on your guard. That is proactive. That is intentional. That is not reactive. That is not passive. That means greed is always out to get you. Greed is something you have to look out for. Greed is something that you have to plan for so that you can defend and protect against it. By the way, that's all of us. That is all about, right? Matthew 6:24. You can't serve God in wealth. You can't serve God in money. You can't serve God in mammon. I like the way Dr. Foley puts it. Goes back to that old school translation. Deuteronomy 15:7 and 8. Do not be hard hearted or tight fisted toward your needy neighbor. Hello. So here's one side of greed, your acquisitiveness. Give it, give it, give it, gimme, 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 gimme. Here's the other side of greed. You don't give to your neighbor. You don't exercise generosity. That's the other side of greed. Not just you taking, it's always at the expense of other people. So that means you're not giving. You're not giving. And by the way, this is why Christians stop saying, well, we got to get government out of it. If the church would just act like the church, you wouldn't need government support because charity would do it all. No, it wouldn't, because y'all greedy. Acquire, 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 acquire. Give a little bit. Not enough on the scale to feed 40 million people consistently. That's why we need federal intervention. It's because it's on a scale that matches the problem. And the problem in and of itself is an issue of greed. Why can't people afford food in the wealthiest nation in the world? Maybe it's because we're not paying workers enough. Maybe it's because so many policies are against workers organizing into things like union so that they can get fair pay. So it's all coming back to greed. And this is 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. The words here are important. A root, not the root of all evil, not all evil, of all kinds of evil, right? So it's one among many, but it's a big one. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. I just named it. Low wages, anti-union policies, not being able to afford healthcare, not being able to afford food. For the love of money or greed is a root of all kinds of evil. The ripple effects. A love of money, deceit, exploitation. By the way, I don't want to get into it yet, but those 34 felonies is because that man wasn't doing right in his business dealings. He wasn't paying people. He was inflating the value of his properties so he could get loans to do more people dirty in business. And y'all say, well, he's such a good businessman. The love of money or greed is fundamentally rooted in fear. It's rooted in a scarcity mindset that there's not enough to go around. It's also rooted in a lack of dependence on God that says, I can't count on God. I can only count on money. So I'm going to get enough of it that I don't have to depend on God or anyone else. That's a lack of faith. It's a lack of trusting that God will provide enough for all people. Woo! Yeah, we get to this. Nan asks, why is this message about greed so hard to understand by so many? I think because many of us are caught up in the sin of greed. I think the sin of greed is an especially relevant one in the United States as the wealthiest nation in the country. I mean, you go to other countries and you see just in the infrastructure how they struggle with basic necessities, whether it's the condition of schools or roads or public facilities or whatever. And then you come to the United States, everything is big. Everything looks shiny. Everything looks modern and up to date, even in the places that we would consider low income. We have so much money. It's one of these things, it's like it's the air we breathe, it's the water we swim in. We almost can't see it unless we get some perspective, biblical perspective or perspective from other people. I used to live in the Mississippi Delta on the Arkansas side in Phillips County, Arkansas, which at one point was named the fourth poorest county in the country. Fourth poorest. This is cotton country. Right about now, you go down to the Delta, you drive down south on Highway 49 and 61, you're going to see cotton, literal cotton blooming. This great wealth that enriched a very small percentage of people. But for me, being in proximity to that concentrated generational poverty was absolutely eye-opening. And I didn't come from a rich background to begin with, but seeing that was a whole other level. But I don't think a lot of people understand that up close. Here's what really got me. Here's really why I wanted to do this topic. I keep seeing the president making billions off of public office. Just put it out there. I keep seeing the president making billions profiting from public office. What gets me in 2025, less than a year into Trump's second term, is that we're not even talking about emoluments anymore. I never hear that word anymore. What what is it not happening? Oh, it's happening, even to a greater degree than in his first term, which is when I first learned about that clause, the emoluments clause. Now, let's get a little bit into this. The U.S. Constitution's emoluments clause prohibits presidents from personally profiting from their office. Do you see why I'm so upset about this? You got people looking at November 1st with dread, wondering how they're going to put food on the table. Meanwhile, the president and his family are making billions off of public office. You know, they used to call them public servants. Isn't that an interesting turn of phrase? Public servants? Because the idea was that you were there to serve others, not to enrich yourself. But we're not even talking about the emoluments clause. Well, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. All right, so what is it? It's a legal expression of a timeless moral truth that public service should not be self-service. The Bible says the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. The emoluments clause actually refers to two separate provisions in the U.S. Constitution designed to prevent corruption and self-enrichment by public officials. The first one is the Foreign Emoluments Clause, which says no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. But the president got a plane, a multi-million-dollar plane. All right? That means you can't get any gift or payment or other benefit or emolument from a foreign government without Congress's approval. And the goal is to prevent divided loyalties or pay for play. So that's the foreign part of it. There's also a domestic or presidential emoluments clause, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7. The president shall not at stated times receive for his service the president shall at stated times receive for his service a compensation which shall neither be increased nor diminished during the period for which he shall have been elected, and he shall not receive within that period any other emolument from the United States or any of them. Meaning, The president should not receive any financial benefit beyond his official salary from the federal government or any state government while in office. And that's meant to ensure that the president serves the public interest, not personal profit. Well, somebody tell Trump that. So, these constitutional guardrails against greed have been totally discarded under this president and his regime. He's no longer accountable to any of this. This is why nobody's talking about emoluments, right? So this article is a couple years old, but it's a report about the first Trump presidency. And he reported making more than $1.6 billion while in office in his first term. This is from Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, or CREW, which is a nonprofit. And he especially made a bunch of money, $620 million combined, because of him charging taxpayers, the U.S. government, our tax money, for events at Mar-a-Lago, Trump Doral, and the Trump Hotel in D.C. And he repeatedly requested that official government business be conducted on his properties. And he made us pay for it. He visited there almost 400 times, those 3 locations in his first presidency. And I distinctly remember folks getting on Obama for, like, golfing once in a while. How many times has Trump been golfing? And who's paying for it? We are. More recently, September 2025, an article from Forbes talks about his family. The Trump family, including Jared Kushner, is now worth an estimated $10 billion, having nearly doubled its net worth since last year's election, since November 24 to November 25. They have nearly doubled their net worth. Have you doubled your net worth? Have any of you who have served in public office doubled your net worth in a year? The Trump family has. It's largely because of crypto, and Trump's fortune jumped $3 billion in 1 year since taking office as president. That's from the Forbes article. Even more recently, from October 2025, an ABC Australia article says that his crypto platform, which is called World Liberty Financial, is started by Trump and his sons and Steve Witkoff and his sons. They send 75% of their profits to the Trump family. World Liberty Financial, crypto. And in March of this year, World Liberty Financial announced it had sold off $550 million worth of crypto. Of that $550 million, $390 million went to the Trump family. Now, listeners, I have founded a nonprofit. I have worked for nonprofits. Do you know what a transformative impact even $1 million would have on your typical nonprofit? We're talking about $390 million to one family. We're talking about SNAP benefits and health care that are being defunded, or the prices are sky high. Meanwhile, the president and his family making hundreds of millions of dollars, increasing their net worth by billions, while low-income families lose food aid and the wealthy, the ultra-wealthy, enrich themselves. That's what I can't stand. That's what I can't stand. Yes, Kathleen, the grift. The grift. Here's the other thing. Every accusation is a confession. So when I go and talk about racism or write books about racism, and get paid, not like the Trump family's getting paid, you know what the right wing calls it? They call it race grifting, or they call it a race hustler. They say this whole anti-racism thing is a grift. It's just a way to get money. If it was all a grift, I would choose a topic a lot more popular than anti-racism, but every accusation is a confession. It's not what we're doing that's a grift, it's what they're doing that's a grift. If memory serves correct, one of the big reasons why Trump even ran in his first term was to make connections for more business deals. It was a grift from the beginning, and greed is underlying this. I can go on and on. I just want to bring us back to center here, right? Um, when leaders serve wealth instead of people, justice becomes optional and compassion is weakness. It's seen as weakness. And you've just totally upended the way that Christ tells us we should lead. The poor are punished for being poor, while the powerful are rewarded for being ruthless. Ooh, that'll preach. The poor are punished for being poor, while the powerful are rewarded for being ruthless. So, greed is not only systemic, it's not only moral and ethical, it's also spiritual. William Barber III often says a budget is a moral document. A budget is a moral document. In a sense, it's a spiritual one too, because it's speaking to what we believe, it's speaking to our theology about the value of people and the place of money. And it's that same spirit that drives national corruption. But it is something that we need to be on the lookout for in ourselves. We need to be on guard for in ourselves. I think it's behind the whole NIMBY phenomenon. NIMBY, that acronym that says not in my backyard. Low income housing, yes, not in my backyard. Yeah, let's house the houseless, yes, not in my backyard. Food pantries, yes, not in my backyard. All right, greed is right here within us. I know it's something that I struggle with, but also, this is in office. This is all I'm trying to say. Y'all, we cannot let him get away with the grift. We cannot let him get away with the greed because it is literally affecting millions of people. So here's my thing. I'm not an organizer. I'm not an activist in the traditional sense. The only thing that I'm thinking about right now is Black Friday, which they call it black. In this case, nothing to do with race. Black Friday is when many companies go from red in their budget back to the black. So the red is the danger zone. They're over budget. Revenue's not coming in. They're not meeting budget. They get to the black. Everything's safe. Everything's okay. They'll make it another quarter, another year. These mega corporations, what can we do? We don't spend with them. Black Friday for them becomes Red Friday. And really, it's a whole season. Again, don't look to me for, how do we do it? Who do we I'm not the organizer here. All I'm saying is if greed is such a root of all kinds of evil, then maybe we take away, we cut off their supply. We cut off their supply. And that doesn't mean we can't spend it all. It just means we don't spend at the usual places. The mega corporations, we shop local, small businesses. we donate more, we give more, we feed more, all of those things. I don't think well, here's how powerful money is. Let me bring a lesson from history. So, when we talk about desegregation, in many cases, it was Black folks boycotting businesses. You can go all the way back to the Montgomery bus boycott. The reason why they were able to get their way is because the bus company was losing so much money. You can also go to the boycotts of businesses. In the 50s and 60s, a lot of times, most of the businesses were downtown on Main Street. So what Black people would do is say, uh, don't shop where you can't work. Don't buy where you can't shop. Those kinds of things. The idea being, don't spend your money in places that are discriminating against you. Okay, and so what that did was put economic pressure on local business leaders, who then went to the political leaders and said, "Hey, we got to do something about this." That tactic is still going to work if we can be of one accord, if we can get on the same page for long enough, because there's all this sniping and biting and all that stuff among people who are trying to resist. We got to get it together, y'all. But we coming up on this big holiday season. We coming up on this big holiday season. What are we going to do? This is when companies count on moving from the red side of their budget back into the black. That is not a commandment written in stone that it's always going to be that way. And we actually have the choice. What are we going to do about all this greed? The other thing we need to start doing is saying emoluments again. Here's the reason why I think we're not saying it is because we don't believe any politician who has the power to do something about it will actually do something about it. But you know, when politicians start doing something about the stuff we want them to do something about is when we make them. So my thing is, I don't want us to give up on holding our elected officials accountable. And if the grift bothers you, then the very least we can do is bring up the fact that we have a constitutional guardrail against greed and grift. It's called the emoluments clause. I'm saying even using that language is going to start to bring up the conversation again. And it's hard because there's always like something urgent and on fire and of the moment. And we don't often get to the issue beneath the surface, which I'm saying is greed. So I'm saying is grift. And so shouting emoluments when SNAP benefits are about to be cut, it doesn't connect with people. But if we can connect the dots, tax breaks for billionaires. You got to pay for that somehow. So you're going to cut the subsidies for healthcare. Well, the Democratic Party doesn't want people's healthcare premiums to double. So you can't come to an accord on a budget, which is another money thing, money document, which is also a moral document. So the government shuts down. When the government shuts down, there's all these ripple effects, including not being able to fund the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is coming from the fact that poor people are suffering while the people elected in political office are becoming millionaires and multimillionaires and centimillionaires and billionaires, including the president himself. So connect the dots for people and use the word emoluments. I don't know. I'm fired up. I it just irks me to see regular people working so darn hard. So darn. I despise it when folks call poor people lazy because poor people work a lot harder than rich people. Poor people work a lot harder than rich people. They are working 2, 3, 4 jobs. They are finding health care. They're finding childcare when they ain't got no money. They are fixing cars when they don't have any extra income to be able to do that. They are paying bills. They are taking care of other people who are less fortunate than them. They are problem solving constantly just for survival. Poor people can't afford to be lazy. I just, and then meantime, not even just the rich getting richer, the ultra rich getting richer, the ultra wealthy getting richer. I said it before and I'm gonna say it again. If you're upper middle class, you ain't they kind of rich. If you still have to get a paycheck from somebody somewhere else, you ain't they kind of rich. If you still have to work on your business and you don't have managers doing it, you ain't they kind of rich. If you're not the ownership class, you ain't they kind of rich. You not there. They don't care about you. You're not rich enough. You're richer than most people, but you're not rich enough for them. So they won't take care of you, is all I'm saying. Okay. All right. I'm just saying we should hold our leaders accountable, especially when so many of them call themselves Christian. Why is it that we hold a local church pastor who might be in charge of a budget of maybe 100, 200, $250,000, hold them more accountable to the way they manage money than the president of the United States? Riddle me that. Oh, we're electing a president and a commander in chief, not a pastor in chief. Okay, so what? It's about morality. It's about ethics. Why will you apply an ethic that greed is not appropriate for leadership in one context, but not over here? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because he's getting stuff done that they want to get done. He's abducting immigrants. He's getting tax breaks for billionaires. He's hating the people they want to hate. He's demonizing the people they want them to demonize. It's useful. It's useful. He's useful for them. So they'll deal with a lot of stuff. And I'm not demonizing them. I'm just saying, here's the issue behind the issue. And while he's getting the stuff done that they want to get done, all ethics, all morality, all issues about greed, that's gone out the door. But we got to do different. We got to be better, y'all. If we want people to not lose their SNAP benefits, 40 plus million people not to be anxious about where their next meal is coming from, if we want people to be able to afford health care, if we want to be able to work 40 hours a week and still have some disposable income, some savings, some time on the weekends not to work, then we've got to deal with the greed. We've got to address the grift. And we've got to be consistent about it. And we've got to demand accountability from our elected officials so they don't get rich off of what's supposed to be public service. I'm almost done. Luke 12:15, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Your life doesn't consist in the abundance of your possessions. A nation that worships wealth will always sacrifice the poor. A nation that worships wealth will always sacrifice the poor. But as followers of Christ, we're called to live differently. We're called to practice a theology of abundance, not a theology of scarcity. A theology of abundance that says, when we break the bread and we share it, there's more than enough for everyone. Thank you for joining me. I go live every Thursday. I would love to see you here next time. And if any of this resonated with you, the best thing you can do is share it. Share this episode. The recording will be live tomorrow morning. Appreciate you all. Have a good night.